anything about winter, but we've had a lot of comments on that. We actually posted something, and it was one of our best viewed items of the past 3 or 4 months.
Well, one of the reasons people look at that with one eye closed is because we've lost the art of observing squirrels. How much time do we spend watching squirrel activity and noticing the difference between that 1 year to the next?
That's the big thing. Okay, well, how many is a lot of acorns, and how many is a lot of squirrel activity? And people before they weren't watching television; they weren't looking at their phones. They were observing everything around them. So it became a bit of a science because people knew if this was happening, that was going to be what the outcome was going to be. And I think it's more power to it. I mean, I would much rather be able to observe something and know something else is coming. We have a lot of weather lore and things of that nature in the almanac this year and on our website. And again, my website is farmersalmanac.com. I got all kinds of videos and articles on almost everything. You just go and punch search. And we have a free newsletter every Wednesday. So if you go to the website, sign up for a free newsletter, it's like 250,000 people get it every Wednesday. And whereas I used to just have to put out a 48-page almanac, now you're doing 200-page almanac, but you're also doing postings every day on all the different social medias, and it's fun. I mean, there's just a lot of activity.
Yep. The website is interesting. It really is.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I just looked up I had a debate within my family about the butterfly moth, or the
hummingbird moth.
The hummingbird moth.
Yep.
And we were reading up on that on your website because we're like, someone thought it was a hummingbird. I was like, no, that's a moth, and answered by Farmers Almanac.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of information like that, Terry, that you can find information about the hummingbird moth, but there's a lot of information in the almanac every year that you just can't find anywhere. I don't know where you find it, Peter, but
it's a good staff, and when you're in a certain business, people are sending you things too that are they know are going to be of interest to you. What I really like in the almanac are the helpful hints, or we call them life hacks. And the 2 or 3 that I think are so simple, but everybody says, oh, yeah. Well, I retrofitted my building, which was built in 1954. We made it all glass. So when you want to have stress-free window washing, on one side of the glass, you go horizontal. The other side, you go vertical. Then when you're done, you know if you missed anything, what side you missed it on. I mean, very simple. Horizontal one side, vertical the other. If you want to have a natural de-icer, when you have coffee grounds, just put them in a pot and then sprinkle leftover coffee grounds on a freshly shoveled walkway, and it helps to melt the ice naturally, and it's environmentally friendly. And on eggs, when you make eggs, I always cracked it on the edge of a pan, and of course some of the shell would go in. Instead of doing that, just hit the egg flat on a surface and then open it, and almost never will get a shell in the egg.
Now, Peter, does the governor of Kentucky, the new governor of Kentucky, really have to swear that he has never participated in a duel?
Well, that's what apparently the law of Kentucky is. I don't know. I just met the governor of Kentucky in Maine the other day. Likewise, But then if you live in Massachusetts, snoring, unless all bedroom windows are closed and securely locked, is prohibited in the state by an old law that's technically is still on the books.
Yeah, so, and you can get arrested for snoring in Massachusetts, I understand.
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah, it says if you haven't closed and locked your windows, you could be arrested. In Maine, there's 4,600 islands off the coast of Maine, which I had no idea there were that many, and only a handful are actually inhabited.
Well, I think that puts an explanation on my family's migration from Boston to Connecticut.
Well, I will say one thing, that the Farmers Almanac has made me a much more interesting person at cocktail parties.
See?
Because you come up with this stuff. Keep the conversation going.
Yeah. We have one story this year's almanac about single-use plastic, and this has gotten a lot of press, particularly the straws, because I think there's 500 million straws are used every day, and the problem being the stuff gets thrown out and it gets into the sea and it goes into animals' eyes and noses and things like that. But when you really think about it, you don't need to have a straw every time you sit down and have a drink. And if you're at home, you don't tend to use straws, but you go to a restaurant, you do. So now there's been a pushback of some of the bigger restaurant chains doing away with straws unless you ask for them. But we have like 5 single-use plastics that we think could be easily remedied. So the straw, there are some straws that are, well, actually pasta can be used. There are some that are decomposable. Water bottles, we use 1,500 water bottles a second in this country, but you could just take a container and just refill it instead of having a different bottle. There's 10 billion coffee pods that are used, capsules that are used, and they take years to decompose. Styrofoam cups, you can obviously use paper. And then grocery bags, obviously there's grocery bags that are not plastic and you can use multiple times. So I think, and I mean, I want people to do what they want to do, but I think people, particularly the next generation, are going to want to be better to the earth than we've been so far. And there are things that we can do that are not wasteful. And you know, with 7 billion or 8 billion people on the planet, there's not an unlimited number of resources. So we should just work a little smarter, a little harder, and it's easy to do.
Yeah, you know what? Excuse me. I think for maybe next year's life hacks for the Farmers Almanac, we could even, not so much of replacing what we're using and using a different material, but even going upstream and just rethinking our whole process into how we're drinking things. I was listening to a podcast actually this morning, and it was a restaurant, and they were talking about whether or not to use tablecloths, and you know, they said they spent so much money over the year just washing the white tablecloths. Yep. And the reason for it was when they put the glass with ice down on the table, it would create the ring on the table. Yep. And they had wooden tables, so that would cause an issue and wear on the table. So they actually said, you know what, we're going to stop using ice. We're just going to keep all the glasses chilled. And they were able to eliminate ice and the ring on their table. So that prevented the chemicals and water that was wasted in washing the tablecloths.
Well, you know, I don't want to show my age, but back when I was a boy, the paper straw worked just very well. It was a little wax-coated paper straw. Mm-hmm. And then we got fancy. But Peter, I have to say that there are certain things, both Terry and I have facial hair, and there are certain things like ice cream cones and drinks that are, you know, cold and fizzy that require a straw for us guys.
More for lemon.
And for that, you can buy a multiple use straw too. By the way.
Oh, that's true.
There are actually straws, and I would say, you know, there are people who have difficulty either for physical reasons or whatever to drink, and a straw is appropriate. But there are straws that are multi-use straws, and for you kind of guys, you hairy kind of guys, I would agree. I mean, unfortunately, can't grow a beard or anything. I'm pitiful.
Well, I'm going to have to carry it. There's an opportunity, a commercial opportunity. Carry your own straw around.
Exactly.
Like a fountain pen. Before we close this interview, we have to ask you, why is there a hole punched into the upper left-hand corner of every issue of your almanac?
Well, that is a throwback, because in the early 1800s, the only thing that was printed were Bibles and almanacs. And so you didn't have bookcases or bookstores or bookshelves or anything like that. So what happened was people had an almanac and they drilled a hole through a nail through it, and they hung it wherever they read it. Could be in the outhouse, could be in the kitchen, could be wherever. And so around 1919, we figured out how to drill it automatically as a throwback to the good old days. So the hole in the corner really is because the almanac is intended to be not kept on a bookcase, but actually hung somewhere.
Excellent.
It's useful.
Wherever your reading pleasure could be.
Mine's in the outhouse.
Yeah, you know, and after the corn cobs and this year's catalog are done, I suppose the last year's almanac will do fine.
Right. So, Peter, actually, when you think about the almanac, is it, you know, whether it's about the almanac or content that's in the almanac, what do you find is usually the most underappreciated portion of the almanac or feature of it?
Wow. Underappreciated. I don't even know how to answer that question, because the number one web view is fishing and hunting. The number two is moon information, and number three is weather. And I think, you know, people appreciate the recipes that we have. We always have a recipe contest. This year it's quinoa, and a recipe that has quinoa in it. Last year it was garlic. I'm not sure that there's anything that's underappreciated. The question is, how much of each thing do you put into the book? So I don't know. I'd say that it's pretty much appreciated by different people for different reasons, but I think the humor is appreciated. I'd have to defer to somebody else to tell you what is not utilized. Everything gets utilized in some way, and I get feedback on everything, so that's always good. And then there's a whole social media, the Facebook. I've got 1,200,000 Facebook followers, 28,000 Twitters, Pinterest, and the whole 9 yards. And that's an ongoing effort to keep getting material that's fresh there and engaging people in conversation that's positive, obviously, not political, and so we're kind of working all the angles, and that's a good thing.
Peter, before we go, I'd like to thank the Willimantic Public Library. We're calling you from their palatial studios here on Main Street in Willimantic, beautiful downtown Willimantic. And even though we had a freeze this morning, we had ice on the ponds, but it's a very warm afternoon. I understand it's not the same way up there.
Well, actually, it's warming up today. It's getting to be 50, but it was very cold this morning. It was actually snow on the old pumpkins. And a couple of the ski resorts are going to be open this weekend. But that, as you know, with weather, it can change. But, the Farmers Almanac, the 2019 Almanac is out there. We're in stores. I think you have 3 locations that we are in. And yes. I hope if somebody sees it, orange and green cover, not any other color, that they pick it up and make a comment.
It's got to be orange cover to be the only almanac that at least I recommend.
Only one I read.
But it is available at all Mackeys stores in Willimantic, Colchester, and Woodstock.
But thank you guys very much. It's been a real pleasure. I enjoyed it and hope we can talk again.
It's always good talking to you, Peter.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for listening. For notes from this episode, check out the blog section of our website at mackeysinc.com. That's MACKEYSINC.com. And remember, where that is in which you love, that's home. Mackeys, where the home grows.